Spider-Man 2 is finally out on PlayStation 5. We saw a preview of the graphics with Spider-Man Morales when the PS5 first launched, but this is the first full-fledged Spider-Man game for PS5. Let's jump straight into the review and talk about graphics. The graphics on Spider-Man 2 look incredible. Everything looks so lifelike and real. Everything from the textures on buildings to the leaves on the trees. This city really comes alive. When I played the first game, I wasn't actually living in New York City, but now that I do, it's pretty cool to travel all the paths that I travel in the city now and see how Insomniac recreated iconic landmarks. It's not an exact recreation, but it comes pretty close. The screen recordings that you're seeing in the video doesn't give justice to the 4K quality that you see when you're actually playing live. Something that is pretty mesmerizing to watch is how the sun interacts with the environment. Shaded areas just look so real, and stepping into light shows the stark contrast in lighting. It's really well done. Sometimes I find myself climbing the highest buildings just to see how alive the city looks on a clear day and how beautifully lit it is. Spider-Man 2 truly is a technical marvel in graphics. There are some visual settings that I changed to make things a little bit more clear and more my taste. I ended up turning off the film grain so that graphics looked super sharp. I also increased the contrast a bit since I felt like the default settings washed out some of the impressive shading and the coloring. Now let's talk about performance. From a performance standpoint, this is probably the best performance I've seen on a PS5 game. I mean, there is so much going on in the world, and something that really stood out to me with Spider-Man 2 is how many people are moving around the city. Every Spider-Man game has had bystanders, but this one has had the most variety I've seen and scale. Walking the streets really feels like you're walking in New York City with all the crowds. The game never skips a beat or drops a frame in fidelity mode. Oftentimes I find myself in a battle with all kinds of enemy movements and environment changes and shifts, and the game never felt like it lagged or wasn't capable. These battles are on a huge scale with lots of moving parts, and performance-wise, it doesn't miss a beat. Now let's talk about gameplay. Spider-Man 1 has had some of the best gameplay elements I've seen in a Spider-Man game, and Spider-Man 2 builds on top of that. It's been a while since I played Spider-Man 1, but jumping straight into the second felt natural. Swinging through the city is so fun, but being able to fly now is really kind of magical. It makes gliding through the city even more fast-paced. Spider-Man 2 also builds on some of the gadgets and power-ups that we saw in the previous games. They're a joy to use, and you can continue to make them more powerful as you progress in the game. As you're swinging through the city, you'll encounter crime where you can save civilians. So far they haven't felt repetitive and really make the city feel pretty real. By completing these side missions, you gain more XP and get tech parts to upgrade your gear. Another awesome gameplay element is that you might encounter the other Spider-Man as you're approaching crime. You can both help each other fight crime and the bad guys, which honestly is so fun. What's also really cool about this game is that you can now switch between Peter Parker and Miles Morales pretty easily. You can bring up this new interface by swiping on the controller's trackpad to switch between the two. Overall, I'm a huge fan of the gameplay. Now let's talk about story. The Spider-Man games have always been extremely story-driven, with a lot of heart, and Spider-Man 2 continues that legacy. Playing as both Peter Parker and Miles Morales, you kind of get attached to the important characters in both of their lives. The voice acting is very well done, and having top-notch graphics adds a layer to the story that makes it feel even more real, or as if you're literally inside a movie. I don't want to reveal too much of the story since there would be a ton of spoilers, but rest assured the story is great. Overall, I'm a huge fan of Spider-Man 2, and I highly recommend it to everyone. Everything from the graphics, performance, gameplay, and story live up to this highly anticipated sequel. If you've already picked up the game, let me know in the comments your thoughts.